Respect that's just about telling yourself you're good enough. But the deep, earned respect that comes from living in a way that you can stand behind. Think of it like the foundation of a building. If the foundation is cracked, everything you build on top, relationships, career, personal growth, will eventually lean, sag, or collapse. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They think love for themselves comes from being loved by others. They imagine that once they find a partner who treats them well, or a friend who is loyal, they'll finally feel complete. But that's backwards. You can't expect others to offer you something you refuse to give yourself. You can't expect them to value your time, your boundaries, or your needs if you don't show them, through your own actions, how those things matter. You have to understand something about human relationships. People are constantly reading cues, consciously or unconsciously, about where you set your limits. If you tolerate disrespect from yourself, neglecting your health, procrastinating on your responsibilities, speaking to yourself with contempt, you're broadcasting to the world that this is the standard you live by. And whether they mean to or not, people will often treat you accordingly. So self-respect is not a slogan, it's a discipline. It's a choice you make in the small, mundane moments of life when no one else is watching. It's in the way you keep your promises to yourself. If you say you're going to get up early to work on your goals, do you actually get up? Or do you hit the snooze button 3 times and tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow? If you say you're done with toxic relationships, do you enforce that boundary, or do you keep answering the phone at midnight when the same person calls to drain your energy? These choices, stacked over weeks and months, are what set the tone for how you feel about yourself and how others feel about you. Here's the hard truth. If you don't respect yourself, you will attract relationships that mirror that lack of respect. You'll gravitate toward people who treat you with the same disregard you treat yourself with. And because it feels familiar, you'll tolerate it. You'll even defend it. That's why so many people find themselves repeating the same painful cycles in love and friendship. They've never changed the way they value themselves, so the external patterns remain the same. Now, self-respect also requires you to confront your own hypocrisy. It's easy to demand loyalty from others when you're constantly betraying yourself. You tell people you deserve honesty, but you lie to yourself about what you want. You demand that others prioritize you, but you constantly put yourself at the bottom of your own list. And the thing is, people can sense that. They may not articulate it, but they can feel when your standards are inconsistent, when they're more about control than integrity. That's why the work of building self-respect is internal first. It's about making choices that align with your deepest values, even when it costs you comfort in the short term. It's about saying no to the things that shrink you and yes to the things that stretch you, even when they scare you. It's about not lowering your standards just to keep someone in your life. And here's something worth considering: self-respect is contagious. When you embody it, the people around you notice. Some will rise to meet you at that higher standard, while others will drift away because they can no longer take advantage of you. That's the paradox. You'll lose people when you begin to truly respect yourself, but the ones who remain will be the ones who actually value you. And that's a trade you should be willing to make every single time. I think many people avoid this work because they confuse self-respect with arrogance. They fear that if they put themselves first, they'll become cold, selfish, or narcissistic. But the truth is, real self-respect isn't about thinking you're better than anyone. It's about refusing to think you're less than anyone. It's about acknowledging your worth in a way that doesn't require putting others down. When you have it, you don't need to dominate people to feel strong, and you don't need to diminish yourself to make them comfortable. You simply stand as you are, firm but open. And you know what happens when you do that? Your relationships become cleaner. You stop needing to manipulate or beg for the treatment you want. You start attracting people who match your energy instead of draining it. You communicate more clearly because you're not speaking from a place of fear or desperation. you're no longer willing to pretend to be someone you're not just to keep the peace. If you think about it, every healthy relationship, romantic, platonic, professional, relies on mutual respect, and mutual respect only exists when each party respects themselves first. Otherwise, the balance tilts. One person becomes the giver, the other the taker. One person's needs dominate, the others get ignored. And over time, that imbalance breeds resentment, which erodes the connection entirely. So if you want to love yourself more than anyone else, you must start here with the decision that your own respect for yourself is non-negotiable. That you will not speak to yourself in ways you wouldn't tolerate from a stranger. That you will not tolerate abuse, especially the kind you inflict on yourself through self-sabotage, neglect, or cynicism. That you will hold yourself to the same standard you expect from others. Because here's the reality, you can't fake self-respect. You can't trick yourself into it by buying nice clothes, posting confident selfies, or reciting affirmations you don't believe. You have to earn it. And you earn it the same way you earn respect from anyone else. By showing up consistently with integrity. By doing what you say you'll do. By refusing to betray yourself, even when it would be easier, more comfortable, or more convenient in the moment. In the end, the respect you have for yourself will define the quality of every experience you have in this life. It will determine the people you attract, the opportunities you create, and the way you recover from setbacks. It is the invisible contract you sign with yourself every day, saying, "I will not abandon me." And when you live by that contract, you won't need to cling to others to feel loved, because you will have built that love from within. So if you take nothing else from this, take this. The way you treat yourself is the way you teach the world to treat you. Make it impossible for anyone to mistake your value. Respect yourself so completely that you set a standard others have no choice but to rise to, or walk away from. And if they walk, let them. You will still have yourself, and that is more than enough. One of the greatest traps people fall into, and it's a trap that's subtle, seductive, and often invisible, is outsourcing their sense of worth. They hand it over like a fragile package to whoever happens to be closest at the time. A partner, a friend, a boss, even strangers on the internet. It's as if they're saying, "Here, you tell me what I'm worth, and I'll believe you." And of course, that works fine, right up until the moment that person stops giving you the answer you want. Then you collapse, because the ground you were standing on wasn't really yours. This isn't just a relationship problem, it's a philosophical problem. Because if the meaning of your existence is determined by someone else's opinion, you have made yourself a hostage. Your mood, your confidence, your identity, these are now at the mercy of external forces you can't control. It's like building a house on land you don't own. The landlord can evict you at any moment, and when they do, you're left wondering who you are without their approval. The irony is, we often think this kind of dependence is love or connection. We confuse needing someone's validation with valuing their presence. But love, in its healthiest form, isn't about dependency. It's about two whole people choosing to share their lives, not two incomplete people using each other to feel complete. When you rely on someone else to define you, you're not in a relationship, you're in a dependency arrangement. And that arrangement is brittle. One wrong word, one moment of neglect, and it shatters. That's why loving yourself more than anyone else requires you to reclaim your worth from external sources and take full ownership of it. Your self-worth has to be something you hold internally, something that is not up for negotiation. It can be influenced by others. You're human, after all, but it should never be determined by them. This begins with a very uncomfortable truth. If you've spent years or decades outsourcing your worth, you're going to feel withdrawal when you take it back. You will feel exposed. You'll question yourself, because the constant feedback from others, even when it's inconsistent or manipulative, has been a kind of drug. It's numbed your need to face yourself directly. And when you stop taking that drug, you're left with silence. In that silence, you meet the raw, unfiltered version of you, the one that has to decide what you're worth without anyone else telling you. This is where discipline and honesty come in. You have to define for yourself the standards by which you measure your life, not the shallow, Instagram-ready standards of looking perfect or getting likes. I mean the deeper, more enduring metrics. Are you living in alignment with your values? Are you keeping the promises you make to yourself? Are you building skills, habits, and relationships that make you proud of the person you are becoming? When you answer those questions honestly, your sense of worth stops being dependent on someone else's mood or attention span. You may still appreciate praise, it's natural, but you won't crumble without it. You'll be able to stand in a room full of critics and still know who you are. And that's a form of freedom most people will never experience because they're too busy adjusting themselves to please whoever happens to be watching. Think about how much of your life you've spent chasing someone else's approval. How many times have you made a choice, not because it was right for you, but because you thought it would make someone like you more? How often have you bent your values, your time, your energy, just to secure a pat on the head or avoid disapproval? Every time you've done that, you've chipped away at your own sovereignty. You've told yourself, my worth is not mine to decide, it belongs to them. But it doesn't. And if you want to live a life where you truly love yourself more than anyone else, you have to start treating your worth as something sacred, something that cannot be handed over casually. That means saying no to things that undermine it, even when that no costs you relationships or opportunities. It means refusing to play the role someone else has scripted for you if that role demands you betray yourself. It means being willing to disappoint people in the short term in order to remain loyal to yourself in the long term. The irony is, when you stop outsourcing your worth, the relationships you do keep actually become stronger. Why? Because they're no longer built on a foundation of control and performance. They're built on mutual respect. You can show up as yourself, unpolished, imperfect, but authentic, and allow others to do the same. There's no need to twist yourself into whatever shape you think will be most pleasing to them. You stop auditioning for your own life. Of course, this isn't about becoming indifferent to the opinions of others. That's not strength. That's isolation. It's about learning to weigh those opinions without letting them replace your own judgment. To take feedback, but filter it through your values. To appreciate praise, but not depend on it. To hear criticism, but not let it define you. You become the primary editor of your own identity. Others can make suggestions, but you hold the final draft. The deeper reason this is so important is that when you stop outsourcing your worth, you remove the most common point of leverage others have over you. People can no longer manipulate you by threatening to withdraw their approval because you don't need it to function. They can no longer control you through guilt because you've already decided that your loyalty to yourself matters more than their comfort. And that's when you become, in the best sense of the word, untouchable. But that kind of resilience isn't accidental. It's cultivated. You have to train yourself to check in with your own compass before you respond to the pressures of others. You have to ask yourself, if no one ever found out about this choice, if it earned me neither praise nor blame, would I still make it? If the answer is yes, then it's your choice rooted in your own values. If the answer is no, then you've found the fault line where external validation is still in control. That's where your work is. And the work never ends because the temptation to outsource your worth will always be there. The human need to belong is hardwired into us, and that's not a flaw. It's part of what makes us social, empathetic beings. But belonging should be mutual, not conditional on your ability to be exactly what someone else wants at all times. At the end of the day, your worth isn't a consensus, it's a conviction. And convictions don't need votes to stand. If you live by that, you won't be immune to pain or rejection. You'll still feel both. But you'll no longer be defined by them. And that's the difference between living a life that's yours and living a life that's rented from the approval of others. So remember this, if you hand someone else the authority to decide your value, you also hand them the power to destroy it. Keep that power. Guard it. Let the way you live be the proof of your worth, not the fluctuating opinions of those who may not even know themselves. Because the day you stop outsourcing your worth is the day you truly become free. If you truly want to love yourself more than anyone else, you have to stop treating self-love as mere acceptance and start treating it as a challenge, an aspiration. Too many people think loving themselves means just being okay with who they are right now, flaws and all. And yes, acceptance is a part of it, but acceptance without aspiration turns into stagnation. It becomes a comfortable prison. You pat yourself on the back for staying the same, when deep down you know you're capable of becoming more. The kind of self-love I'm talking about demands that you become the person you would admire. Think about that for a moment. If you met yourself, your habits, your discipline, your attitude, your consistency, would you look at that person and feel respect? Would you want to be friends with them? Would you trust them? If the answer is no, then you're not living in alignment with the standards you secretly wish you could embody. And the uncomfortable truth is, you can't trick yourself into loving a version of you that you don't respect. Admiration is earned. And earning it starts with deciding on the kind of person you want to be. Not the fantasy version, but the disciplined, principled version that you can build day by day. It means identifying the traits you admire in others. Courage, consistency, honesty, work ethic, and making them your own through deliberate action. This is where most people give up, because it's hard. It's far easier to wait for admiration from others than it is to earn it from yourself. But any admiration that comes from the outside is fragile. It can be withdrawn at any time. The admiration you earn from yourself, you get to keep. This isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. Perfection is unattainable, but alignment is achievable. It's about matching your actions to your values as often as you possibly can. If you say you value health, but you treat your body like a garbage bin, there's a gap. If you say you value honesty, but you lie to yourself about your own habits, there's a gap. And those gaps erode self-respect, which in turn erodes self-love. Close those gaps, and you'll feel different about yourself. Not because you've reached some arbitrary milestone, but because you're living in integrity. One of the traps people fall into is waiting for motivation to strike before they start becoming this version of themselves. They think, once I feel ready, once I feel inspired, I'll start. But admiration doesn't grow out of fleeting emotions. It grows out of consistent action, especially when you don't feel like it. The very moments when you resist the urge to quit, when you push through resistance, when you honor your word even in private, those are the moments you're quietly building a foundation of self-love that no one can take away. And here's the thing, when you start living like the person you admire, your life begins to transform in ways you didn't predict. Your choices improve. You stop tolerating things you used to accept because they no longer fit the identity you're building. The company you keep changes because people who don't share your standards start to drift away. Your work improves because you're not doing it just to get it done. You're doing it to honor the version of yourself who doesn't cut corners. There's a deep psychological truth here: identity shapes behavior, but behavior also shapes identity. When you consistently act in ways that reflect your highest standards, you begin to see yourself differently. And that shift in self-perception becomes a reinforcing loop. You're no longer someone who's trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined. You're no longer someone who wishes they could be confident. You are confident because you've built evidence for it in your actions. But make no mistake, this process will cost you. It will cost you comfort, because comfort is the enemy of growth. It will cost you certain relationships, because some people are invested in you staying the same. It will cost you excuses, because you can no longer hide behind them once you've proven to yourself you're capable of more. But what you gain in return is priceless, an unshakable sense of self-worth that's not dependent on circumstances. You'll also realize something else. Loving yourself in this way doesn't just benefit you, it benefits everyone around you. When you live as someone you admire, you raise the standard for others, not through judgment, but through example. You become proof that it's possible to demand more of yourself and still live a fulfilling life. You inspire, not by preaching, but by existing. And that's far more powerful than any lecture you could give. And maybe the most profound part of all this is what happens internally. You stop feeling like you're living on borrowed time. You stop wrestling with that quiet, gnawing voice that tells you you're wasting your potential. You start waking up with a sense of purpose, not because everything in your life is perfect, but because you're proud of the way you're showing up for yourself. You realize you no longer have to chase love, because you're already giving yourself the kind of love that matters most. The kind that's earned through respect, discipline, and alignment. The beauty of becoming the person you admire is that it's a moving target. As you grow, your standards will grow with you. You'll look back on the version of you that once felt impossible to become, and you'll realize you've surpassed them. And then you'll set your sights higher, not out of dissatisfaction, but out of a genuine desire to keep evolving. This is how you build a life that feels rich, meaningful, and yours. So here's the challenge: if you met yourself as a stranger tomorrow, would you be impressed? Would you respect how you live, how you speak, how you keep your word? If not, that's your starting point. Don't try to change everything overnight. Start with one thing. Pick one trait you admire and live it relentlessly until it becomes second nature. Then add another and another. Before you know it, you'll have built a version of yourself you not only love, but one you would choose to be even if you could be anyone. Because at the end of the day, loving yourself more than anyone else isn't about pampering yourself with indulgence. It's about building yourself into someone worthy of your own admiration. It's about looking in the mirror and knowing, without hesitation, I would choose this person every time. And if you can say that, you've already won.